So thank you. I'm really glad to present you with Carl Normandin the updates about the development of the benchmark document for including approaches for the conservation of concrete heritage. That is one of the tasks, the main task in which the ICOMOS working group was involved. I will start giving you some brief information about the first phases of this work, of the development of this document. Of course, we have referred to existing documents, first of all. In particular, we have referred to a document that was written and developed by our scientific committee on 20th century of ICOMOS. In particular, I refer to the Madrid New Delhi document firmed in 2017, entitled Approaches to the Conservation of 20th Century Cultural Heritage, whose aim is to contribute to an appropriate and respectful management of this period of heritage, architectural heritage. Indeed, this document, while recognizing clearly the existing heritage conservation documents, it identifies the very specific issues involved in the conservation of the 20th century heritage, covering the full range of typologies that might be present in this period of heritage, including, for instance, infrastructures, industrial heritage, cultural landscapes, and so on. And the previous presentation given by Susanna Landruv well explained the rich and the diversity of typologies that can be included in the 20th century heritage in general and in concrete heritage in particular. Of course, we have referred also to different documents from developed from other national and international organizations and institutions. Here, just some examples from a document developed by the Historic Environment in Scotland. And we also, beyond these reference documents, we also considered some important glossaries and standards in the field of concrete repair and concrete conservation in particular, not only looking at the European panorama, but of course to the entire world, to international organizations and associations, for instance, the guidance documents developed by the American Concrete Institute, as well as the documents of the Concrete Society and other important European institutions. It was really important to start our reflection about how to develop this document, to look at the literature about concrete architecture in general, and in this sense it was really useful to refer to some existing bibliographies about historic concrete conservation that helped us to check some of the most interesting contributions in terms of papers, books, and so on, and to identify the many experts, scholars, scientists that have dealt with concrete conservation during the last years and decades from different points of view, from the diagnostic analysis to the history of concrete heritage to real concrete intervention and works. And also it was interesting to identify and reflect on the many case studies of concrete conservation that were developed during the last years, and that helped us to identify some of the main challenges that are involved in the conservation of this heritage. Of course, we have considered case studies from all over the world and from all over the 20th century, since starting from the very first decades of the century up to the end. the use of concrete changed, the technology itself evolved, the formal languages evolved, the functional needs and typologies changed. So also observing the different challenges raised by concrete architecture in the different periods and different geographies was a really fundamental part in the process. This document, the main aim of this document is to actually provide a guidance for the conservation of concrete heritage with respect to its many values, the cultural, historical, aesthetic, social, and technological values that actually constitute its significance. As I mentioned, observing the very diverse ensemble of concrete architectures from the different periods allowed us to have a clear idea about the many different values involved in this type of architectural heritage. First of all, observing that its significance may lay not only in the architecture itself, but in the history of the building or the site, in the innovative use of the materials, of the construction techniques, or of course, even a combination of these aspects. So it is necessary to understand the approach to the design and construction to appreciate the significance of the buildings or the site to the history of the built environment in general. These first considerations also are part of a set of key concepts and issues that we started to assemble to put together this document, starting from the thought that conservation approaches should ensure that any work carried out is sensitive to all significant elements and values identified that a concrete heritage site may embody. For this reason, there are different issues to be considered in a concrete conservation process. First of all, the history of the site, of the concrete heritage site, the different typologies and the causes that are at the base of the distress and deterioration. Also, the different repair design materials and procedures that are available at the moment, and in particular referring to their long-term performances of such repair solution and techniques and materials. It is, of course, crucial to analyze, to be aware of the environmental condition in which the heritage site is located. And another issue that we wanted to underline is the fundamental importance of ongoing maintenance, because as we have already widely seen in many cases, the lack of maintenance is the main source of and the main cause of deterioration, because in some cases, for instance, the same material, concrete, showed really short-term performances. As I said, the techniques and the material itself evolved over the decades, over the century. So maybe also in some specific periods, we find concrete types which showed very poor performances, and especially in this case, a lack of maintenance produced a very rapid deterioration. So these first issues helped us to identify the main points of the guidance document, together with some few other reflections. The fact that the concrete is used in buildings of different dimension and different function, because we go from structures which play a crucial role in our built environment, such as road infrastructures, bridges, dams, and so on. So the whole category of civil engineering works to small-scale objects such as landscaping elements, decorative elements, which may be also prefabricated. So changing scale in use of the structure of the object also, as well as the use of concrete in combination with other materials, with other building materials. And this interaction of concrete with other materials should be carefully taken into consideration, because for instance, when it is used in combination with stone, wood, or glass, or ceramic, we may assist to specific decay processes, and we also should pay attention to the conservation materials and techniques that we will use in these specific cases. And a further fundamental issue that we wanted to underline, specifically in the introduction of this document, is the importance of carefully evaluating and analyzing previous repairs interventions. Through visual expansion, through the analysis of existing documentation, but also, for instance, through oral sources, because previous repairs may have been carried out as emergency works in order to keep the building or the structure functioning, without paying much attention to the quality of materials or to the quality of the realization of the repair itself. In particular, if a patch repair was done, many times it resulted in an evident change in appearance, particularly dealing with fair-faced concrete buildings. But the use of improper materials might have resulted not only in a visual impact, but also in a problem of incompatibility from the mechanical and physical point of view. So for all of these reasons, the analysis of patch repairs is particularly important for concrete buildings. So now I can leave the stage to Kyle Normandin, that will continue this presentation, entering in detail of the contents and of the structure of this document.
Thank you, Stefania. So going forward, I think we spent a great deal of time, I think, looking through the various aspects, looking at repairs, looking at a methodology for how we might move forward in terms of setting up the guidance document. We had a lot of discussion about how to structure that. We're still having discussions about that. But I think what we settled upon was something that we felt was clear and concise and would be helpful in terms of how we move forward with the various sections of the guidance document. Here, what you can see on this slide is the sections as they are presented in the document. We thought it would be helpful today just to give a preview of how we came to that. I think Stefania really talked a lot about the thoughtful consideration of the many aspects that we need to pay attention to as practitioners in concrete conservation. And so what we thought we would do for this particular document is really try to move away from the original subject title, which was benchmark, to really thinking about this in terms of a guidance document. It's much more manageable to think about it in those terms. So the first part of the guidance document opens with a preamble and a background. Most of what you've heard today in terms of the project, the various parties and collaborators on this project, to provide a context for the requirements of wanting to put together a guidance document that could be useful to people working in this particular area. And then we would move to these 8 subheadings, which really kind of frame the the guidance document as a whole. One is to develop an understanding and assess the significance of the place and the building. Very important before doing anything else. Then from there to really think about engaging and identifying an experienced interdisciplinary project team, which would be multifaceted people with different disciplines that would be able to collaborate to seek the best outcome for a project. Then the next step would be to develop preliminary knowledge of site-specific issues. And I think Stefania was talking a little bit about that with regards to understanding perhaps all the past treatments that have been made, looking at any changes or alterations that might have impacted the site, place, the building itself. And of course, from a materiality standpoint, that's something that is very important to pay attention to. And then I think once we have an understanding of those issues, to really start to dive into some of the more technical aspects of the project, to gain much more knowledge on through the condition assessment process, looking at the site, the building, the object, and really recording its current state in terms of its condition and its the full gamut of the assessment process itself. And then after really looking at that and analyzing those things and really looking at the conditions, it might then be possible to start thinking about repair approaches or policies that underscore the importance of the object. And so that's sort of, I think that's a critical, pivotal point in this document that we're working on in this particular moment. And then from there, really kind of looking at the options for a repair program and implementation in the future. I think that's closely tied in with how we might think about maintaining the object and setting forth maintenance programs and just continued monitoring, paying attention to changes that might occur over time. But most importantly, I think, in all of this is that we end in a place where through this process, we are promoting and celebrating concrete heritage. And I think that is something that, we've always felt was a key and critical aspect of this guidance document, is to provide the reader and the user this, basically an underscoring of knowledge that can be gained through the appreciation of concrete heritage. And then I think as part of this, we also have we have a glossary that will be included for the terminology used in the guidance document, a list of all the images, which we'll give you a little bit of information on shortly. And then, of course, all the references that, other places where we might want to go to for references. And I think those include a lot of different technical documents that Stefania referred to in the beginning of this presentation. Next, Stefania. So overarching themes that we have been working on as part of the development of the guidance document, I think we felt at a certain point, I think maybe 2 years into this, that we felt it was going to be very important not just to provide text or directive in terms of how to approach conservation issues, but really maybe trying to give the user and the practitioner a sense of how that might look. So we really felt that, connecting some of these themes, the descriptions, and some of the guidance itself with illustrations would be helpful. So for example, we really felt it was important to include different types of deteriorative mechanisms, different types of images, figures that people could refer to that were illustrative of the text itself. I think the other thing that we wanted to really pay attention to was the overarching theme of the research program itself, which was, how do we influence and reach beyond, not just to the European community, which is part of this research project, but really thinking about how we might bring this document to other people who might find it useful. I think the other thing that is connected to concrete deterioration mechanisms is really looking at, best examples of how we might repair concrete, but to also think a little bit more carefully about what that entails. It's not just, I think, looking at the materiality and matching it, but really looking at, some of the more fine-grained aspects of matching the material and trying to keep in the spirit of the object itself. I think the other thing that's connected with that is really looking at common mistakes that we make in practice, whether that be on the object over time, lack of resources, but to really kind of look in depth at some examples that we would not want to see recommended as part of this guidance document. So hopefully we will be able to provide some key illustrations of that. And then, of course, really looking at a myriad of defects that occur with deterioration over time. What's common, what's typical, and what are the different types of damage with regards to historic concrete. And I think, that, as I said earlier, the glossary will also have representative of references to those types of defects. Next, Stefania. So today we both Stefania and I and the group really wanted to provide just a little bit of a preview into how the document is developing. We have been working on the layout and the selection of images that go along with the text to help the reader or the user obtain the information that's included in the guidelines. I think it's kind of important. We know that people take in information in different ways. So we've decided to kind of try to balance the text and the descriptions with the images that we see here, whether it's an overview of an image, looking at different types of repair programs, or detailed photos that might reference a particular condition. Next, Stefania. Oh, that's it. So we just wanted to give you a little sneak preview there, and hopefully in the near future, probably within the next 2 to 3 months, we'll be finalizing the document and making it available certainly through the INNOVACONCRETE project and as well hopefully through the ICOMOS ISCN 20th Century Heritage. So thank you.